When I told my wife of 1 year that I wanted a divorce, she just glanced at me and nodded. Okay, I'll have the lawyer split the assets. In a month, we'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize the paperwork. Pretty straightforward. But that night, I stumbled upon a question on Reddit. The question read, "My husband wants a divorce. What can I do to win him back in the next month?" The craziest thing was, the questioner's profile picture was identical to my wife's, forever cool and composed. I stared at the photo on my phone. It was a deep blue night sky, fringed with clusters of white flowers, calm and beautiful. I zoomed in, took a screenshot, and repeatedly compared the images, finally confirming. They were identical. The possibility made me want to laugh, but I couldn't. If not, it meant these two were the same person. With mixed feelings, I reopened the question. My wife wants a divorce. What can I do to win him back in a month? Details: we got married for some reason. It's been a year now. We're from the same high school and he's my first love. I still like him a lot. I know he has someone from the past he can't let go of, and he married me for my assets. But I don't mind. Seeing him every day makes me happy. But I don't know what I did wrong when he suddenly wanted a divorce today. I pushed it back a month, but I don't know what to do next. I can't bear to divorce him, yet I feel I should respect his wishes. Can anyone help analyze? I'm willing to pay generously. The question ended there. Maybe because it was newly posted, there were only a few replies. I checked them out, and shockingly, the questioner replied seriously to each one. Dude, don't be such a pushover. You gotta have some self-respect. He likes someone else, what are you waiting for? I could introduce you to someone new, very reliable. Thanks, but I'm not interested in someone new. I don't want a divorce. What do you mean married for assets? That's a classic user. Just give him more money, that'll shut him up. Please hold back your malicious assumptions, or I'll contact my lawyer. Plus, my money is his. I'm glad to share it with him. Stop trying to persuade her. She's head over heels. Unbelievable. Best of luck. Hope you two are stuck together forever. Thank you, I appreciate the blessing. As I scrolled down, not many suggestions were offered. Most advised splitting. After reading the question, I was surprisingly dazed. The IP, profile picture, time, question all matched. But the tone? Entirely different. And did we go to the same high school? Why can't I remember? What's this about first love? These doubts cooled me down. Maybe it was just a coincidence. I consoled myself and exited the question, trying to find something else as a distraction. But deep down, I felt a nagging itch. Finally, 10 minutes later, I made up my mind. I created a new account and dubbed it Relationship Guru Simon. Then, I clicked on the questioner's profile and sent a pre-crafted message. Are you struggling in the whirlwind of love? Tormented by matters of the heart? I'm a relationship guru and seasoned counselor, having helped 500 clients find love and fulfilling marriages. If you're yearning for change and happiness, reach out. Let's craft a custom strategy for you. Your happiness awaits. 2 seconds later, the message was sent. I stared at the screen, unsure. Will this work? Hopefully. Like the problem described, my marriage with Jenny wasn't simple. A year ago, a shareholder in my company had a gambling addiction. He misappropriated funds and, when exposed, committed suicide. The money was hard to recover. A big order was due, and the company was on the brink of bankruptcy. That's when Jenny showed up. She was infamous then. Abandoned abroad by a big corporation, she reported her own father upon return, landing him in jail. During the chaos, she acquired shares when stock prices plummeted, becoming a major shareholder effortlessly. Everyone said Jenny was ruthless, betraying anyone for profit. But when she came to my company, she only brought one contract. It stated she'd invest to help my company through its crisis, provided that we share sales channels and, most notably, seek a marriage of convenience to ensure solid cooperation. I triple-checked the contract. Convinced her terms were so simple, I thought it was a windfall. I even prepared for her to have some issues or aggressive tendencies, perhaps to vent out. I thought about how to protect myself, gather evidence, and possibly use it to overpower her and seize her assets. I admit it sounded opportunistic, But I just didn't trust someone who'd turn against her father to play savior for no reason. But I was wrong. She was normal and surprisingly kind. She'd have the nanny cook my favorite dishes, often sent me gifts. When work overwhelmed me, she'd advise me. Thanks to her, in a year, my company tripled in size. I had moments of self-indulgence, wondering if she liked me. But whenever I tried to get closer, she'd evade like the wind, always keeping distance. It felt like playing mind games with a house cat. After several attempts, I learned to maintain the right distance with my nominal wife. In short, work topics were fair game, small talk often silent, physical contact strictly off limits. Following these rules, we navigated a year smoothly. So why did I bring up divorce in the first place? It's simple. Jenny is a good person. No matter what others might say, to me, she's undeniably a good person. Honestly, if she was even a little mean to me, I'd probably take advantage of our marriage and take a big piece of her. But she's too nice, which leaves me without an excuse to do so. I have this principle. I don't bully good people, so it's better to just break it off. I believe that even without the marriage between us, we could still be good friends and partners. It would feel more natural. Actually, that's what I wanted to tell her. I did not expect that when I mentioned divorce at the table, she'd agree without hesitation. She didn't even finish her meal and rushed back to her room. It was like she couldn't wait. My prepared explanation was stuck in my throat. What could I say? That I was doing it for her own good? That I wanted to divorce her because I respected her? Forget it. It sounded fake no matter how you put it. I ate the rest of the dinner in silence and quickly headed back to my room. I wasn't sure if I was upset because she agreed too quickly and my ego took a hit, or because for once I tried to do something good and she didn't appreciate it. Maybe it was both. Anyway, I was irritated. The reason I clicked on that divorce question was that I saw someone in the same situation and wanted to see how others handled it. I didn't expect to find a surprise. Anger can come and go quickly. For instance, now I'm holding my phone, looking at the popped-up message, and my earlier irritation has faded. Instead, I'm full of excitement, because if this isn't about my wife, no big deal. But if it is, the information in the question could be really interesting. But deep down, I think it's probably not about her. So I replied to the new message calmly and objectively. Hi, I was wondering, is it common for couples to reconcile after filing for divorce? It really depends, but the success rate for impulsive divorces is quite high. My husband isn't impulsive. If he filed for divorce, it must be after careful consideration. Can you do anything about that? I can't make any guarantees, but I promise to do my best to help. Would you like to try my consulting services? Why not? How much? I wasn't sure how much to charge, so I set a low price and sent over a code from a small account. A $1,000 deposit, sweetie, and another $1,000 on success. No replies from them, as if hesitating. Did I overcharge? Just then, a transaction popped up. Along with it, a snarky message from them. Message: you've received $10,000. I transferred it. Your fees are so low, are you really qualified? Feeling a bit guilty, I quickly typed back. Of course, I'm qualified. Please trust in my professional skills. I promise you'll get a refund if it doesn't work out. It's not about the money. Fine, start with your normal process. Great, I'll begin now. First, the most important question. Do you have any idea why your husband filed for divorce? Perhaps I hit a nerve, as they suddenly started sharing more. Truth is, I know it's my fault. I'm not good enough for him. I'm average looking, live a dull life, and all I do is work. I'm a boring person. Even though we've been married a year, apart from necessary physical contact, he never comes near me. I'm not good at conversations. I get nervous when he shares stories, unsure of how to respond. Honestly, if his family hadn't needed help that I could provide, he wouldn't have been with me. I guess he wants a divorce now because the problem is solved and he's had enough of me. The messages kept coming, each more depressing than the last, filling the screen with gloom. I frowned, utterly stunned by his candor. So he helped the other out of a bind to get married, but they don't talk or connect, leaving their relationship cold. With the problem solved, the partner wants to divorce, yet he wants to hang on. What sort of marriage is this? It's like he invited a god to live there. I suddenly felt powerless. I wanted to reach through the screen and snap him out of his romantic delusions. But with that 10 grand in mind, I held back. Not a lot, but the person paying calls the shots. I know this well, and I did outreach first. Although I got the wrong person, he confided in me, so dropping everything wouldn't be right. Yep, I realized my mistake. When he said he was average looking, I knew he couldn't be my wife. Whatever else, Jenny's looks are pretty top tier. Dark eyes, a sharp nose, and lips pressed into a cold and brooding demeanor. Her most notable feature is her silver gray eyes, apparently inherited from a Scandinavian grandfather, resulting in this perfect face. Whenever we dined together, glancing at her made the meal taste better. I digress. Anyway, I decided to assist this inquirer, not to stress him again. Our marriage does share similarities, so I might see through things more clearly than a real expert could. With that in mind, I dived into my role as a relationship guru, my fingers typing quickly. By necessary physical contact, do you include marital relations? The other party immediately got defensive. What are you implying? Of course not. I'd never take advantage of someone. Wow, this guy's dating smarts are lower than a kid's. I maintained composure, asking more questions. Alright, how's your physique? I work out regularly, so it's decent. Wait, why are you asking this? Naturally, to help you figure things out. Since he's mentioned divorce, it means the way you guys are interacting isn't working out. You're the one trying to save this marriage, so you need to take the initiative and change. But you said you're not great with words, so there's only one solution. What's that? Use your body to seduce him. Seeing a string of random letters pop up on the other side, I can almost picture how shocked and flustered he must be right now. Stay calm. Think about it. Your husband is a healthy guy, and you two have been married for a year but have never done the deed. It's only natural he has needs. Don't you? I asked, hitting the mark, and as expected, he couldn't come up with a response for a long time. Seeing she had nothing to say, I gently but persuasively continued to advise. If you can't change your personality quickly, why not try the allure of hormones? And come on, it's not like you're losing anything by trying it out. Who knows, he might just be into it. As my words kept flowing, she finally interrupted, exercising her right to say no to the plan. No way. I can't do it. Think of something else. But I was steady and went straight with reverse psychology. Then keep things as they are and see him at the civil bureau for that divorce in a month. She suddenly went silent. The typing indicator kept flashing, showing her struggle. Finally, after 10 minutes, she awkwardly messaged back. Seduce him? How do I do that? Seeing the message, I paused for a moment, then couldn't help but chuckle. Love can make the smartest folks in the world turn into fools. I thought to myself, typing away quickly as I explained the whole plan's steps clearly and logically. There was a brief silence on the other end. Not sure what she was visualizing. She finally spoke again, even changing her tone. So, Master, what did you do before this? Well, what can I say? I was kind of a CEO, you know? In a high position, there are always some sneaky folks trying to test my limits. Luckily, I'm always frank and honest, passing each test. Of course, there's no need to mention all those tales. I pretended to be mysterious and replied, Don't ask, it's just experience. Alright, Master, I'll try it when I get the chance. I'll let you know how it goes. I sent back an okay hand emoji. Then I noticed it was already past 10. We chatted for over an hour. I've got to be pretty idle. Shaking my head, I headed to the bathroom to shower, then slipped into pajamas, ready for bed. Suddenly, there was a polite knock at the door. Who's coming over this late? Wondering, I got up, pulled the door open, and asked, Who is it? Halfway through speaking, I was stunned. Jenny stood at the door, glanced at me, and, in her usual calm voice, simply said, Forgot to mention, in 2 weeks you need to attend the Smith's party with me. Normal setting, normal tone, normal topic. Everything was normal, yet, tonight she was in a black silk nightgown. The gown outlined her curves perfectly. Sure, I've said before I'm well tested. But isn't this too? No, way too challenging. To look or not to look, that's the question. Looking gives a guilty conscience. Not looking feels like a missed chance. Opportunities like this are rare. Living together for a year, Jenny's always wrapped herself up, like she's going to a gala. I've never seen her looking so casual. Wait, this isn't right. I suddenly looked up, almost incredulous. Isn't this outfit of hers exactly like the advice I gave my online friend? I'm no fool. Once or twice is coincidence, but now it's like getting hit over the head with proof. Turns out that zero emotional intelligence, terribly shy, spendthrift yet willing to be a sycophantic love-struck fool. And the stone-faced, breathtakingly beautiful young business prodigy before me, manipulating old foxes left and right. They are indeed the same person. And I'm the cold, heartless, devoted in another, cast-aside husband. Jenny, so this is how you saw me. If I didn't know myself, I'd almost be fooled by you. Honestly, was I the one not making moves? Who was the one running faster than a rabbit whenever I got close? Who? And this so-called long-lost love? Since when did I have one? Who said it? Get them here to tell me face to face. Were it not for the wrong timing, I'd be dragging her by the collar, asking about every single misunderstanding. She seemed to realize something was off with my mood, pausing to ask, "Is it inconvenient for you?" I didn't speak, just kept staring at her, my teeth grinding. Seconds later, she suddenly turned away, muttering softly, "Sorry, never mind then." She quickly turned to leave. As she did, I caught a glimpse of her slightly flushed ear tips. That's when I finally remembered, despite this lousy image of me, she didn't want a divorce. In fact, all those awkward, passionate, near-confessing words resurfaced. As she was about to leave, I subconsciously reached out, grabbed her wrist. She glanced at our interlocked hands, her lashes flickered, yet her face still kept that cool vibe, asking, "Got something to say?" I looked at her flushed earlobes, then at her composed face. Suddenly felt like teasing her a bit. "Nothing, just that?" My eyes traveled slowly down, taking in her beautiful face, long neck, and curvy figure. Stepping closer, I murmured, "You seem different tonight." Jenny's eyes slightly widened, as she instinctively tried to pull back, only to find her wrist still in my grip. She reluctantly turned, trying to lean away as she coolly said, "Samuel, you're too close." In the second-floor hallway, a warm, soft light illuminated everything. I could clearly see that faint blush spreading from her ears to her cheeks. Oddly easy to tease. I stared at her face, my fingers itched to act. "I'll be gentle," I assured myself, convincing myself there's no harm in a little harmless teasing. With that thought, I released her wrist, lightly touching the edge of her robe's collar. Jenny snapped her head back, wide-eyed. Her lips moved a couple of times, like she wanted to say something, but she hesitated and didn't speak up. I seized the moment, tracing my fingertips slowly down from her collarbone along the edge of her collar. The silk pajamas were smooth and soft, and the skin beneath was soft and elastic. Maybe it was the cool corridor temperature, but she felt a bit cold to the touch, like warm jade perfectly smooth. As my fingertips glided over her chest, something made her body stiffen, and her breathing became rapid. She took a shallow breath, her voice panicked and raspy as she pushed me away. "Wait, not outside." Before she completed her sentence, I had wrapped her tightly. Then, with a serious look, I patted her shoulder and kindly reminded her, "It's autumn now. Wearing these pajamas might get you a cold. Let me help you pull it tighter." She seemed shocked at how things turned out, her silver gray eyes showing rare confusion. I acted like I didn't notice, holding back laughter, and asked, "By the way, what were you saying about not outside?" Almost as soon as I asked, her face turned bright red, just like a steamed crab. She retreated a step back, strained to say, "Nothing. You heard wrong." With that, she turned and walked away. This time, I didn't stop her, but called out leisurely, "Jenny, I'll be at the party in 2 weeks on time." After watching her head back to her room, I closed my door and lay back on my bed, burying my face in the pillow, letting out the first belly laugh of the day. Oh my God, I can't take it. Jenny is just too innocent. It was supposed to be adult flirting, so why did it feel like a rogue harassing a good student on the street with her? I couldn't help but crack up halfway through and had to back out, laughing until my stomach hurt. I remembered to take out my phone and scrolled through our chat history. I have to say, knowing her true identity now, rereading our chats was quite refreshing. But the more I read, the more puzzled I became. Let's not talk about some white moonlight thing for now. I just want to know why her self-evaluation is shockingly low. Is someone keeping her down? I couldn't help but think of her cheating father who broke the law and promoted an illegitimate child. Seems like the kind of jerk that would pull such a thing. As I frowned, lost in thought, a transfer notification popped up. Message. Payment received $100,000. The next second, her familiar profile picture appeared with a message. Master, you're amazing. Short message, 4 exclamation marks. Yet after a year of marriage, our texts never had more than 2 commas. I couldn't help but laugh. If she'd chatted with me with the same enthusiasm, I would have realized she liked me long ago. So I replied rather coolly. What happened? I used your method. And tonight my husband not only held my hand but also worried I'd catch a cold. He's so gentle. I read the message and slowly typed out a question mark in my mind. Wait a minute, are you sure we experienced the same thing? Where did the hand-holding happen? That was a whole tug. Where was the concern? That was just an excuse to get closer. Honestly, if one day I sold her, she'd happily count the money for me and even praise my cleverness. She's such a... I sighed and quietly muttered, love-struck fool. With my phone in hand, I tinkered with my response, unable to maintain a cool tone. I could only reply dryly, that's nice, congrats to you. All thanks to you, master. What should I do next? What should you do? I have no clue. My plan was to ride the momentum if there was any response, hoping to achieve harmony after a little friction on the pillow. Who would have thought you'd be sharing the bed with me? But then it hit me. This is a golden chance to get to know Jenny better. Otherwise, with her keeping everything to herself, who knows how long before I figure out what's on her mind. Once I realized that, my fingers typed faster. Simple, love is all about attraction. First, you were physically appealing. Now we need to focus on psychological attraction. Do you have any hobbies or skills? Does having money count? Counts as joint property. Doesn't have to be amazing, just something to spark conversation. Like skiing, swimming, or enjoying art shows, operas, all can work. The typing indicator showed for ages. Then finally she sent a message. Does cooking count? Cooking counts? Of course it does. I didn't expect a CEO's hobby to be so down to earth. In my mind, I pictured Jenny wearing a cute apron while cooking. I have to admit, it's kind of adorable. So, I promptly gave her enthusiastic encouragement. But my cooking tastes average. Wouldn't giving it to a chef be better? Wrong. Big mistake. You can buy chef's meals anywhere. But something you cook personally is extraordinary. Imagine this: if there were 2 plates in front of you. One is a gourmet dish made by a chef, the other's a simple dish made by your husband. Which would you eat? Eating it would be a waste. Can't I freeze dry it for keepsake? Hold on, what did she just say? Before I could reread, she withdrew the message, replacing it with a new reply. I understand, you're right, master. Anything else to keep in mind? Seeing her inquire like that, I decided to ignore the withdrawn message for now and offered advice. Remember, presentation doesn't need to be top-notch, just a bit messy to show it's your work. But the taste should be slightly better than it looks to surprise him. As expected from a master. Noted. Anything else? Just keep an eye on his taste preferences. Try making something he likes, and don't overdo it. Got it, no problem. Upon reading this, I hesitated, a bit doubtful. He eats like a preset robot, without a glance. Can she really tell what I like? Thinking it over, I decided to test the waters. Okay, tell me his taste preferences. I'll help you figure out what's suitable to make. Alright, he prefers sweet. Doesn't like ginger, celery, bell peppers, or any raw food. And he's allergic to crab. That's what I know. Some of this stuff I haven't told anyone. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean I can't eat it. When I need to, I still will. You'd never know that if you didn't pay close enough attention. Looking at the message on the screen, My feelings were all over the place. Before, I only realized she liked me. But at this moment, I truly, deeply felt it. It was hidden too well and too subtly. It was in restrained words, in the flush under her hairline, in those fleeting looks at every meal. Without this accident, I would never have discovered it. My heart felt like it got scorched by something and began to pound. While daydreaming, I sent her a few suggestions and finally ended the chat. Her last message said, "Thanks for your help. I'll have the chef give me more training in the next couple of days. I'll update you soon." I stared at that message for a while. Then, quietly, I buried my flushed face in my pillow. I have reason to suspect Jenny's playing hard to get. 3 days. Whole 3 days. Where's the homemade food she promised? I haven't even seen a leaf of lettuce. Did the receptionist stop it, not knowing? Could be. Back then, the company was in a critical state. I was focused on securing investment, so the wedding was super low-key. Only some execs and partners knew. Poor Jenny. She might feel wronged. Feeling a pang of guilt, I asked at the front desk. The receptionist, after recalling twice, nervously said, "I don't remember ever seeing this person." Good, the last bit of guilt vanished. I was unstoppable. Just in case, I showed her Jenny's photo and told her to send Jenny straight to my office if she came. After all this, my secretary reminded me that the project lead from Company F had arrived. When I took my documents to the meeting room, I met an unexpected face. Emily. She sat by the window in a dark gray turtleneck, flipping through papers. It's been years. She's lost that youthful innocence, grown more composed, yet still with that same cold, distant vibe. Hearing the door, she looked up at me and said, "Samuel, long time no see," with a rare, soft smile. "It really has been a while. We broke up when she decided to study in Germany. We haven't seen each other in 7 years." Old memories flooded back, and I couldn't help but think of high school days. My relationship with Emily was like a textbook teenage romance. She was smart, pretty, with a cold demeanor. But she came from a poor family, with parents who died in a car crash, and only a frail grandma to rely on. Who wouldn't be drawn to such a delicate flower? Well, I did. Conveniently, I had some money to spare. So I found a great nursing home for her grandma and even paid for her tuition. No doubt, money can make anyone seem more charming. Plus, I was decent all around. Over time, naturally, we had mutual feelings and were happily together. We met during a competition in freshman year, dated in sophomore year. Junior year, her grandma got very ill, and I stayed by her side in the hospital and through the funeral. After the college entrance exams, she excelled, earned a spot in a joint program with a foreign university, and went to Germany. I chose a local college and started getting involved in the family business right from freshman year. From high school sweethearts, we took separate paths and now cross paths again. If this were a cheesy novel about rekindled love, I'd probably be hugging her, pouring my heart out. But sadly, I'm a married man, busy playing newlyweds with my wife. So, I just smiled politely. Indeed, it's been a while. In adult life, even the strongest bonds come second to work. Emily and I, along with the other leads, hammered out the project details until noon. As lunchtime rolled around and people trickled out for breaks, we were left alone. Sitting across from Emily, the atmosphere was awkwardly calm. She glanced at my ring finger, then asked, "Jenny treating you well?" I paused. "You know her?" She looked at me, puzzled. "You don't remember her? We were in the same class. She was even my desk mate for a month." "I thought you knew." Of course, I didn't. Every month, new desk mates in high school meant she had at least 10 others. We weren't even in the same class. How could I remember them all? Seeing my silence, Emily smiled. "She never mentioned it to you?" Then half satirical, half self-mocking added, "Did she never tell you? She got me that scholarship." The room was silent for a moment, frozen in time. I looked up at her, composed. "So what are you saying?" Emily hesitated. "You don't believe me?" She leaned forward desperately. "I'm not lying. She may seem innocent to you, but that's not true. She's very calculating." "Emily," I said, cutting her off, "it was you who decided to study abroad without a word. It was you who kept it from me for over a month. It was you who didn't trust I'd let you go. As for my wife, I stated clearly, I'll see and hear for myself what kind of person she is. I don't need others to tell me. Just as I finished speaking, my phone rang. It was the receptionist, sounding confused. Samuel, the person you talked about today, showed up, but after we passed by the meeting room, she suddenly wanted to leave. Can you explain? I turned to glance at the half-open meeting room door, then at Emily, who was visibly upset and standing very close to me. I couldn't hold back and cursed silently. Stop her for me. I'll be right there. I hung up the phone after saying that, ready to leave. As I was pulling the door open, I heard Emily's voice, trembling a little. Samuel, if I hadn't chosen to study abroad back then, would the person putting a ring on your finger be me? Emily, I rarely sighed. There's no if in this world. With a click, I closed the door, leaving her alone to calm down. When I rushed to my office, Jenny was sitting on the couch, sipping tea. A huge food container was on the coffee table, probably 5 layers tall. The secretary knew about our relationship and stood there awkwardly. Seeing me arrive, she breathed a sigh of relief and thoughtfully closed the door before leaving. Honestly, I felt a little awkward too. Getting caught up with your ex by your wife is not something I've dealt with before. I awkwardly sat next to Jenny and sneaked a look at her expression. No difference from usual. Clearing my throat, I decided to start with small talk. Why didn't you let me know you were coming? I could have picked you up. Silence. Jenny kept her head down, tracing the rim of her cup over and over. After a while, she asked softly, Is it because she's back that you want to divorce me? She didn't say a name, but the implication was clear. Emily had said the truth. They indeed knew each other. Moreover, the white moonlight mentioned before finally had an answer. But the question is, with such an unforgettable face, why don't I have any recollection of it? That doesn't add up. I didn't speak for a moment, trying hard to recall memories from high school. Jenny seemed to take my silence as confirmation. She held the cup so tightly her fingertips turned white, then closed her eyes, took a deep breath and said, Okay. I was still reminiscing and automatically asked, What? I said, Okay. Both companies have just stabilized. Divorce now would be troublesome, so, if you're willing to cancel the divorce, some clauses in our marriage agreement can be nullified. Her voice was particularly slow, and each word seemed forcibly pulled from her throat. You can like someone, even be with them as long as you don't bring them home. I listened to her words, almost dumbfounded. What does she mean by them? What does she mean by don't bring them home? Does she think I'm some kind of insatiable wolf? I couldn't help but laugh in exasperation. I stared at her face, then suddenly got up, pinning her down on the couch. The cup fell from her hands, rolled a bit, leaving a transparent trail on the floor. Lying on the edge of the sofa, her hair was in disarray. Jenny. I looked down at her, calling her name firmly. You taught me a lot about company matters, so now I want to teach you something. I pressed my elbow to her chest, preventing her from getting up easily, then pinched her chin. People have mouths to speak clearly. I did like Emily, but that was 7 years ago. I don't know when she came back, and today was our first meeting since the breakup. It was close because we were arguing, and there's surveillance in the meeting room. I can get someone to check it right away. As for the divorce, I paused, deciding to lay everything out. You've completely grasped S Group's channels, and except for the shared channels, our company businesses don't overlap at all. The so-called cooperation is essentially dead, so I want to dissolve it. With the company untangled, this contract marriage naturally serves no purpose anymore. So, do you have any questions about what I just said? This time it was Jenny's turn to be shocked. She looked like a lagging robot overloaded with information, slowly blinked, then shook her head. Now it's my turn to ask you. I leaned slightly, looking into her eyes, and asked softly, Tell me, why did you come over at lunch today? Jenny's lashes fluttered, as if enchanted. She whispered, Wanted to see you. I grinned, satisfied. Leaning down, I planted a gentle, butterfly-light kiss near her lips as a reward. Great, let's have lunch together. Jenny is really too humble. Her cooking is precisely my taste. If she weren't wealthier than me, I'd consider hiring her as my chef. Her face, too, is a feast in itself, fitting the saying a feast for the eyes, especially when she's blushing. All in all, we wrapped up this lunch in a tacit exchange of affection. And an hour after she left, my phone buzzed. 3 new messages popped up from the same familiar profile picture. Master, I tried transferring money to you, but hit a limit. Do you have any unlimited card accounts? Or I noted that you also live in City A, and I have a decent property here. If you're interested, I can give it to you. By the way, I've got some nice land too. How about I build you a temple? Jenny's family is seriously wealthy. It's a miracle they haven't gone bankrupt with such a besotted successor. Jokes aside, I slipped back into my master persona and started replying. No rush. Tell me about the progress this time. Right, that's what I wanted to say. Master, thanks to your advice, my problem's resolved. Wait, how is it resolved? How am I, the person involved, unaware of this? As I puzzled over this, there was a knock on the door. The secretary, thrilled, handed me a printed project plan. Samuel, J Group wants to enter car manufacturing. They're interested in our patents and production lines, and are visiting next week. Great, making overlapping business when there was none. Huh? Deciding the group's future direction in an hour. Jenny, you're really something. Suddenly, I felt a tinge of sympathy for J Group's employees. Working is already exhausting, and now I'm somehow caught up in this unexpected CEO romance saga. But when I flipped through the project proposal, something seemed off. There's no way anyone could whip this up in just an hour. All the data analysis clearly took extensive research over at least a year. I paused and kept flipping through, page by page, until I found the project's proposal date. Shockingly, it was way before our marriage agreement. I suddenly felt this unexplainable certainty. If my family's company hadn't hit a crisis, this proposal would have been our first encounter. Even if we divorced, she'd find her way back to me, again and again, like a relentless pursuit. So I told my assistant to notify other departments to get ready. I sat alone in my office, deep in thought. The project is obviously a good thing and it feels nice to be liked. But being loved is a whole different story. If Jenny just likes me, I'm totally fine keeping this marriage, maybe even getting closer. After all, her looks and personality tick all my boxes. I'd even say I lucked out. But her truly loving me? That I need to weigh carefully. Love is heavy and unpredictable. For people like us, it's nearly synonymous with danger. Today, she says she loves me, willing to support me with her company's resources. Tomorrow she doesn't, and she could take everything. Plus, from her concerns and what Emily said, it feels like something from high school drew her to me. Was it high school me she likes, or even worse, a version she imagined? Someday when she finds out the real me is different, will she regret it, or even resent it? These are things to consider. So what on earth happened in high school? I can't remember anything. My head hurts. As I rub my temples, my phone pings with a familiar icon. I suddenly realize I haven't replied to Jenny's texts. Quickly check my phone. There are only 2 messages. Even though things are settled, I'd still love to follow your lead and learn how to be a good wife. 10 minutes later, she sent another message since I didn't reply. Are you okay? Need my help with anything? Looking at her texts, it hit me. Why not just ask her directly? Feeling enlightened, I quickly typed. No worries, just handled a little issue. Let's continue. About being a good wife, what do you think that means? Making my husband happy. I just want him to feel happy with me, nothing more. I paused. I'd considered every possible answer except this one. For a moment, I felt guilty about my suspicions. But only for a moment. I shook my head, pushing those complex thoughts away. Got it. Can you share more details about your time together? It'd help me give better advice later. Sure. Where do you want me to start? From the beginning, maybe? Like, how did you guys meet? The beginning? She left some candies on my desk. Oh, I remember that. I used to do that. I wasn't in Emily's class, but I often visited her there to chat. At first, I'd ask someone to call her, but later I got familiar enough with the class to just stroll in. Of course, this could be bothersome to others. So, I often carried snacks to share with everyone. Candy was convenient for this, small, easy to distribute, and likable by many. Jenny had been Emily's desk mate, so it made sense it happened. Curiosity piqued. And then what? That's it, really. I mean, did you talk or have any interactions? None at all. No wonder I can't recall. Who would remember that? I tried asking different questions but got nothing useful. We truly had no interactions in high school, and I knew everything that happened afterward. So what's she really like about me? My head throbbed even more. I almost wanted to just ask her directly. Then I spotted an invitation from the Smiths on my desk. A new plan formed in my mind. If I can't find out while she's sober, what about when she's drunk? I pondered a bit, then started typing. I've realized a big issue from your description. It seems you've never said any sweet words to your husband? True. No way. That's no good. Think of marriage as a soup. Sweet words are the key seasoning. Without them, the soup's tasteless. Would you want to drink bland soup? I wouldn't, but suddenly saying sweet things might gross him out. My heart softened a bit, and my tone became gentle. It's okay. Let me help you. Sweet talk seems tricky, but it's about setting the right mood. Create a nice atmosphere, and even simple words can move people. Take candlelit dinners, they're popular, right? Imagine the music, flowers, food, and candlelight. Almost anything you say there feels romantic. Got it, you're saying I should prepare a candlelit dinner? Don't follow it rigidly. Be flexible. Really, as long as there's a similar vibe, try saying something sweet to deepen your connection. If you're shy, maybe consider having a bit to drink. When slightly tipsy, people get bolder. But don't overdo it. Have any reason to drink soon? There's a party in a few days with drinks, but I usually don't drink there. Perfect. Sip a little, pretend you're more tipsy than you are, and say those words you've been hesitant about. After typing that, I awaited her reply, nervous she might catch on to my scheme. I saw the typing indicator linger briefly, hesitating maybe. But she eventually responded. Okay, I'll give it a try. The day of the party came around quickly. Jenny and I showed up at the ballroom arm in arm. The J Group's plans to expand into new business areas had been a hot topic. Since I was the chosen partner, people in the circle naturally paid me quite a bit of attention. To cultivate business relations, I spent the entire evening socializing. It wasn't until the party ended and Jenny and I got into the car that I remembered I had other plans for the night. In the dim light inside the car, there was a faint smell of red wine. I glanced at Jenny to check in on her, only to find she was already looking at me. Our eyes met awkwardly, so I asked casually, "Did you have a drink tonight?" "Yeah," she replied softly. "How much did you have?" "One glass, not as much as you." Turns out my plan had failed. I sighed quietly and closed my eyes, pretending to nap to avoid further conversation. We went upstairs together when we got home. My room was the closest, so, like usual, I said goodnight and opened my door. Unexpectedly, she followed me inside. Because of the party, her hair was neatly styled, making her look clear-eyed and delicate. Her fitted suit and silver-gray eyes gave her the appearance of a noblewoman from an old European castle. Though I was puzzled, I couldn't help but be patient because of those captivating eyes. "Is something wrong?" I asked. She said nothing, just stood there gazing down, making me feel uneasy. After a moment of silence, I had an idea, waved my hand in front of her, and asked, "Jenny, how many fingers am I holding up?" She looked back and forth between my fingers and my face, then held my wrist and gently pressed her cheek to my palm, like a cat nuzzling. "No way. Did you get tipsy from one glass?" I studied Jenny's expression, and although she looked calm, I figured she must be drunk. I couldn't resist laughing. I led her to sit on the edge of the bed. Sitting there, she seemed more docile, looking up at me sweetly. I cleared my throat, ready to start my question and answer plan, beginning with the basics. "What's your name? How old are you?" She didn't answer any of my questions, just sat quietly. She's always been reserved, I thought with a sigh. So, I asked her offhandedly, "Do you know who I am?" "Yes." Her unexpected reply caught me off guard. When I looked up, there she was, staring at me. I know. You're Samuel, Emily's boyfriend. Wrong, I said, raising the picture frame from the bedside to show her. In it, we were arm in arm, looking happy. Seeing the picture, she quickly turned away like she was avoiding an electric shock. Putting the frame back, I chuckled and asked, "Now, do you know who I am?" She turned her head down, not saying a word. After a while, she quietly said, "Yeah, I know. I must be dreaming again." Again? I seized on the word, asking, "You have dreams like this a lot?" She seemed bashful, avoiding eye contact. I leaned closer and teased, "Jenny, do you have a thing for me?" She didn't respond, her eyelashes fluttering like a caught butterfly. Seeing this, I joked, "We've never really talked before. Why do you like me?" She looked up, thought for a moment, and said, "Why can't I like you if we haven't talked?" I was stumped and thought about it before answering. "It's not that you can't. It's just, shouldn't there be a reason?" Silence filled the room. Just when I thought she wouldn't answer, she grasped my wrist and quietly said, "I watch you a lot." Avoiding my gaze, she added, "Everything about you is vibrant in my eyes." Though subtle, her words were sweet. My heart skipped a beat, suddenly understanding why I wanted a direct answer from her. Maybe it was because I wanted to hear her say, "I like you. Looks like I'm quite the romantic." Realizing this, I should have said no, but instead, I chuckled and gently lifted her chin, teasing, "If I'm vibrant, what color are you?" She turned away, hesitant to answer. Under my insistence, she finally said, "Gray." "Because of your eye color?" I guessed. "No, because I'm just plain and boring." My heart softened, but I knew our future was long, and I wanted to change her view of herself. So I held her hand and said, "Look, you've already taken on my color." Jenny paused, then smiled. It was the first time I saw her smile like this, as beautiful as spring melting ice. After a kiss, just as I was about to speak, she covered my eyes and gently pushed me away, heading into the bathroom. I stayed on the bed, hiding my laughter in the pillow. Hearing a noise from the bathroom, I rushed to the door with concern, only to find the shelf had fallen. Breathing a sigh of relief, I saw her under the shower, meeting her gaze, seeing a fragile vulnerability beneath her clear expression. I adjusted the water temperature, embracing her again, warming us both. I found myself wondering how things had gotten here. Initially, I was planning to divorce, then somehow ended up guiding her and then guiding myself. How did I end up teaching even stuff like this? Noticing my distraction, she unexpectedly pulled me back with a firm grip on my wrist. Over and over, back and forth, it felt like a child savoring candy, reluctant to bite or swallow, just keeping it on the tongue, savoring it until it melted. When I opened my eyes again, the sun was high in the sky, and my body felt like it had been rebuilt, sore all over. A cup of water was handed to me. I looked over to see Jenny, sitting neatly dressed as usual, with a calm face, just like always. I sat up slowly, took the cup, and drank a few sips in silence. For some reason, the atmosphere felt slightly awkward. I put down the cup and asked cautiously, "Do you remember what you did last night?" "Yeah, I remember," Jenny replied softly. Relieved, I said, "Good, as long as you remember." My attitude has relaxed a lot, and I asked with a smile, "So what's the deal with us now?" "I know," Jenny murmured. "I've already prepared the divorce papers." "What do you know now?" Although I'm almost used to her magical way of thinking, it still gets me riled up. Jenny noticed it too, and started speaking faster. "I'm sorry, I got drunk last night and thought it was a dream, so?" I let out a cold laugh. So, her voice turned dry. "I did something really bad to you, and She trailed off, seemingly unsure of what to say next. As silence settled over us, the air grew cold. Right when I was about to reveal the truth and remind her not to overthink next time, suddenly a teardrop fell onto her hand. I was stunned. After snapping out of it, I quickly moved to the bed to help her wipe away the tears. "Wait, I haven't said anything yet. Why are you crying?" Even Jenny seemed more surprised than I was. She turned away, quickly raising her hand, and angrily wiped her face a few times. Instinctively, I grabbed her wrist to stop her. She didn't resist, just kept a cold look while tears streamed down. I felt both heartache and amusement, so I explained what happened last night. I did it willingly. It's not your fault. Jenny paused, lowered her gaze, and tears rolled down faster. You don't have to force yourself to comfort me. I'm not comforting you. It's the truth. Unfortunately, no matter how much I insisted, she didn't believe me. With no other choice, I let go of her, picked up my phone, and handed it to her. Seriously, see for yourself. Jenny glanced at the screen, her eyes widened slightly, and the tears finally stopped. A master? I nodded calmly. I just happened to see your question. Felt kinda like you, so I created a small account to test it out. Didn't expect it to be you. So, I was ready for you to get drunk last night. I squinted, noticing the marks on her neck, and chuckled. Who forced who? It's still up in the air. Jenny's ears turned red instantly. She turned her head and asked, Since you knew all along, then why did you keep? It's fun. I smiled at her. First love? You think I have a childhood crush? Amused, what else did you come up with? Jenny was uneasy, looking as if she would jump out the window. I chuckled, feeling a hint of sweet revenge. Oh, right, I said slowly, you said I married you just for your money? That part isn't entirely wrong. I sighed and asked, honestly, aren't you afraid I'll take the money and run? Jenny puzzledly asked, just take the money, why run? I raised an eyebrow, amused, not leaving you a dime? Okay. Jenny nodded, then asked, do you want to do it? I can have my assistant draft the contract. I was gonna laugh, but when I met her eyes, I realized she was serious. She was genuinely ready to give me everything, even though I only mentioned it casually. Sunlight streamed through the window, lighting up her silvery gray eyes. Through them, I saw her sincerest heart, so transparent, so beautiful. It made my heart race. I was dazed for a long while, eventually shaking my head. No. Why? She asked. I looked at her and leaned in to give her a quick kiss. I can't. I whispered, I like you too much, can't. Jenny was stunned. Just when I thought she'd blush, she suddenly hugged me tightly. It was such a firm embrace, almost making it hard to breathe. I love you, she said, her voice trembling over and over. I love you. I love you. I hugged her back, gently patting her. I know you love me. In all those times I didn't see, you loved me quietly for a long time. So from now on, I'll work hard to love you too. Jenny's epilogue. In her senior year of high school, Jenny fell for someone. His name was Samuel, her deskmate's boyfriend. High school Jenny was a bit of an oddball. She was a loner, silent, with bangs so long they covered her eyes. She needed to hide her eyes, would hide her face if she could. Because under her father's fists, that was the only way to avoid being hurt. The reason was simple. She looked like her grandfather, and her father feared him. That stark fear bred stark rage. The more he feared, the harsher he'd hit her. The family story was a typical one. Rich girl falls for a poor guy, against all odds marries him, not knowing he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. When her strongest ally passed away, the once gentle lover showed his fangs, leaving her devastated. Finally, she chose to end her own life, hoping to make the villain regret. But did he regret it? No way, he was delighted. He found a new woman, had new kids, using Jenny as a punching bag to vent his past grievances of having to bow low. But Jenny didn't hate her father. Ever since her mom died, she was numb to most things. How to describe it? The world, in her eyes, was like her mom's photo, gray and white, dull, tasteless, monotonous. Maybe because she was so detached, her father eventually lost interest in hitting her. Jenny was always treated like she was invisible, and honestly, she loved it. At home and school, no one bothered her. Her life was simple: eat, study, sleep, wake up, then do it all over again. That was until her first day as Emily's deskmate. Suddenly, there were colorful candies and a note with flowy handwriting on her desk. Sorry for taking your seat, here's a little apology. Please accept it with a smile. That day, Jenny stared at the little smiley face on the note for ages before slowly packing the candies into her bag. The next morning, she went through her usual routine and returned to the classroom. But as soon as she stepped in, she saw someone in her seat. A boy was there, slightly leaning his head, his hand casually resting on her deskmate's shoulder, gently tapping. He looked vibrant and youthful, but worry was etched on his face. There was a unique atmosphere between them, one that no one could intrude on. Jenny paused, then turned and walked back out into the hallway. As classmates filtered back into the classroom, some noticed what happened and casually chatted about it. Why is Samuel always here these days? I heard Emily's grandmother passed away recently. He's probably comforting her. How sweet. I want a relationship like that in college. You wish. Their voices faded away. Jenny stood alone, leaning against the wall, and a faint ripple of emotion stirred in her heart. She thought, so there are people who comfort you when a loved one dies. Intrigued, Jenny started observing Samuel. But soon, she found out it was a mistake. Maybe because she was used to being knocked around, Jenny's senses were a bit sharper than others. This meant she couldn't easily ignore what went on around her. Like when Samuel laughed with others, but her glance caught him secretly linking his finger with Emily's. Or after Samuel would sit at her desk, he'd leave behind colorful candies and the warmth of where he'd been sitting. And when Samuel whispered to Emily, Jenny could clearly hear it. Which teacher gave too much homework, which friend pulled off some embarrassing stunt, what new items were available at a store. Nothing particularly special, but it gave an illusion like these bits of life were shared just with her. As if they were close. Jenny tightened her grip on her pen. For the first time, she tasted jealousy, like a relentless fire thawing the layers of ice around her heart, revealing a secret crush. Jenny often thought how life is so mysterious. Just one moment can change everything. A photo turned her world gray. A few candies brought colors back. 30 days flew by, and it was time to switch seats. The classroom buzzed with activity when Jenny heard Emily's casual remark as she was moving her things. Don't you feel gross eavesdropping on other people's conversations? Jenny paused, not retaliating, calmly replying, it's not as bad as being dead weight. Emily looked up, stared at her, staying silent, but the veins on the back of her hand started to show. Their eyes met, clashed, and parted like an unspoken war. That was their first and last conversation. That evening, Jenny finally approached her father to give up 3% of shares and study abroad, leaving all inheritance rights to her brother. Her father appreciated her sense and immediately had someone draft the transfer documents and contacted the school for extra spots. Better make it two, Jenny smiled for once. I have a friend too. People say the one who knows you the best isn't necessarily your friend. It could be your rival. Graduation came quickly, as expected. Emily opted to study abroad. Meanwhile, Jenny boarded a plane to the UK. In this foreign land, free from her father's control, she learned rapidly, utilizing her grandfather's old connections to gather evidence. Until the day everything turned around. She finally had enough clout to pursue someone she liked. Jenny imagined being well-dressed and eloquent when she saw Samuel again, prepared with 100 discussion topics to avoid awkwardness. But when she met him, her mind went blank, reverting to her gloomy, clumsy teenage self who only dared to steal glances at him. So she messed up again. Within a year, he asked for a divorce. That night, when she reached out, hoping for help, it was more about venting. She knew Samuel couldn't possibly fall for her, unless by some miracle. And there was. In a sea of countless questions, they miraculously crossed paths, were noticed, understood, and accepted each other. Jenny once fantasized about how she'd feel if Samuel liked her. Shock, fear, joy? But when it happened, it was none of those. Instead, she thought of her mother, the naive, foolish woman who paid for love with her life. She felt justified. Pursuing love wasn't wrong, trusting wasn't wrong, giving her heart wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong. She just loved the wrong person. Fortunately, she had the world's gentlest partner now.